Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke with President-elect Donald Trump for 20 minutes tonight, according to the Israeli leader's office, discussing this country's security. And in a statement, Netanyahu congratulated Trump in the warmest of terms, calling the, quote, huge victory history's greatest comeback. Remember also that Trump was a staunch supporter of Israel during his first term. But Trump has repeatedly said that Israel should finish the war. We don't know what that will mean in concrete terms, but Netanyahu seems determined to keep fighting.
And of course, the question is, which war? Israel is currently fighting a multi-front war. And to be fair to Trump, he is on the record saying that he would like to see an end to all of them. But he also tends to speak from both sides of his mouth, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But there is a giant story today, an exclusive in the Washington Post, in regard to Israel now planning to give incoming President Donald Trump a gift in the form of a ceasefire deal in Lebanon. So the real question that we should all be asking ourselves is, what is this really about, and what does Netanyahu expect in return? So we'll muse that question a little more later, but first, the war in Lebanon has been absolutely disastrous. Nearly 900,000 people have been internally displaced by Israel's expanding military campaign in Lebanon, and more than 3,300 have been killed, according to the country's health ministry, many of whom, of course, are women, children, and the elderly. Now, 40 Israeli soldiers have been killed while fighting in Lebanon as well. And remember, this is the Lebanon part of the war. There's still an ongoing rampage in Gaza where dozens of Palestinians get killed literally every single day, and no one bats an eye. Now, Trump usually speaks out of both sides of his mouth, as I mentioned earlier. While he has told Netanyahu that he wants to bring an end to the wars in the Middle East, meaning plural, he has also told Bibi to do what you have to do against Hezbollah and Hamas. Now, right after Trump was elected, Netanyahu's Minister of Strategic Affairs, a gentleman by the name of Ron Dermer, visited Mar-a-Lago to speak with Trump about Israel's terms for a ceasefire in Lebanon. And guys, this seems different from the engagement we've seen from the Israelis in regard to a ceasefire in Gaza. I don't think that they've ever engaged in good faith. Their terms were always meant to be just impossible to meet. And so I think that there is a secret agenda here, which I'll get to in just a minute. But in regard to a ceasefire in Lebanon, I do think that Israel is engaging in good faith. And I think that they do want to provide some sort of gift to Donald Trump. So on Sunday, an Israeli official said that the conversations at Trump's Florida residence, that's at Mar-a-Lago, focused on an Israeli ceasefire proposal for Lebanon involving Western and Russian cooperation. An Israeli military official said plans were also being created to ramp up ground operations in Lebanon if talks were to ultimately fall apart. So let's talk a little bit about the Russia component of this, right? Because hilariously enough, the Washington Post reached out to some Biden administration officials. They're like, yo, what's up? Like, is there any talk of Russia being involved in a ceasefire deal with Lebanon? And a US official's like, no. And that's because the Biden administration sees it, of course, as a red line in regard to ever working with Russia, especially since right now the United States is arming Ukraine in order to fight Russia's invasion of their sovereign country. But obviously things are different with Donald Trump. And so according to this Israeli official, the proposal calls for Moscow to prevent Hezbollah from rearming via Syrian land routes, which for years have been the main conduit for arms from Iran to Hezbollah. Now, the US official, again, under Biden says, no, we're not having any conversations with Russia, but that doesn't mean that Trump wouldn't be willing to have conversations with Russia or be willing to accept Russia's role in a possible ceasefire deal with Lebanon. And guys, I want to be clear about something. I mean, if that's what it would take to secure a ceasefire, I mean, we should be open-minded to that. Anything to stop the bloodshed, I think, is a good thing. But obviously we need to know what the final terms of this ceasefire deal would be. Now, the terms of the evolving deal, according to Israeli officials, would require Hezbollah fighters to retreat beyond the Litani River, the northern edge of a UN-monitored buffer area established after the 2006 conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. And to be clear, Hezbollah was already supposed to be, pushed back, at that specific border, the Litani River, but they have encroached into the territory in recent years. What is very likely a deal breaker, though, when it comes to the terms of Israel's proposal, is essentially the effort to ensure that the IDF will be able to continue operating across the border with Lebanon, should they feel that any of the terms of the ceasefire deal have been violated. And that appears to be a non-starter. Members of the Lebanese government have already made clear that they would not accept that. And I don't blame them for doing so. They see that as a violation of their country's sovereignty, and I would agree with them on that. So that might be the only deal breaker here. But according to the Washington Post exclusive on the story, a person close to Hezbollah said that the group would be willing to withdraw its fighters north of the Litani as part of a temporary ceasefire. So already there's good news there. You have, someone close to Hezbollah telling the press that Hezbollah would be willing to agree to at least that provision in the ceasefire proposal. The Israeli officials said that the Lebanese military would take control of the border zone for an initial 60-day period overseen by the United States and Britain. Now, the Israeli official also told the Washington Post the following: there is an understanding that Israel would gift something to Trump, that in January, there will be an understanding about Lebanon. That's fascinating. So look, do I think Netanyahu just has an affinity for Trump, sees him as his bro, and is just like doing something nice for him out of the kindness of his own heart? No, I would never in a million years think that. Everything here is transactional. And so the real question is, what is Netanyahu buttering Trump up for? And we know that Trump, loves gifts, loves to have his ego stroked. And so that's clearly what's happening here with Netanyahu. It's pretty clear. What is Netanyahu wanting in exchange? Is he hoping that the US has a hands-off approach as the IDF and the Israeli government rain terror on Palestinians in the West Bank, which they are now going to annex, and continue to rain terror on Palestinians in Gaza? Or do they want something more than that? And what I'm worried about is that Netanyahu is buttering Trump up to ensure US engagement in a war with Iran. That is my biggest fear, and I'm worried that that's the direction that we're headed in. And that's really the main, the root issue that Netanyahu has been hyper-focused on for years. I mean, I remember this being a big issue back during the Obama administration when Netanyahu did not want the Iran nuclear deal to go through because he wanted to escalate to get to a point where we're in a war with Iran. And so I'm worried that that's where we're headed, and maintaining IDF troops or avoiding stretching IDF troops too thin with a multi-front war would make sense if you're getting ready to ramp up war with Iran. And finally, I just want to give you this excerpt to show you how pathetic Joe Biden is, okay? Outgoing president, good riddance. This is his legacy because he gave Netanyahu and the Israeli government everything they wanted. Okay, the strongly worded letters, I honestly question if that even existed. Biden is pathetic, weak, and he has done nothing but enable the Israeli government. And get a load of this. Frank Lowenstein, who's a former special envoy for Israeli-Palestinian negotiations under Obama, told the Washington Post this: Netanyahu has no loyalty to Biden and will be focused entirely on currying favor with Trump. Trump won't hesitate to act like he's already president when he sees an opportunity. Of course, Netanyahu has no loyalty to Trump. He has he has no loyalty to Biden. He has taken every opportunity to dog walk Biden, humiliate Biden on the international stage. And Biden should feel humiliated. I don't know if he has the mental capacity to at this point, but he is an embarrassment. And he is the person who very likely cost the Democrats this election. out of ego, out of selfishness, just unbelievable. But we'll see how this plays out. Obviously, Netanyahu has a very different approach now that Donald Trump is president-elect.
If you enjoyed this video, that's because of our members. They make us independent, they make us strong, and they make us honest. Become a member today by hitting the join button below.